We have a quorum? Okay. Good morning, everyone. It seems that we do have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting. Sorry, and everybody's enjoying their side conversations. Hi, Barry. But we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting. So I suppose we're already ready for recording. All right. Well, I'm going to kick things off, but welcome to our October 27th, 2022 Social Equity Working Group. As you guys, I think I've met almost everyone here before, but my name is Tuere Faola, and I will just be kicking off today's meeting. But before we begin, I would like to ask today's interpreter, Claudio, to introduce themselves and walk through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting.
Aviso importante por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, tableta, celular, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego idioma. To use the Zoom interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on in the interpretation icon, the world, and select either English or Spanish. If you're joining us using Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. If you're joining us today at Sandag and need interpretation into Spanish, please check out a headset from the receptionist on the 7th floor. The headset looks like a little iPod and comes with an earpiece which you can use to hear the interpretation in Spanish. Simply hold the earpiece to your ear and the interpreter will come on automatically. Si se ha unido a la reunión de hoy en la sala de juntas de Sandag y necesita interpretación al español, por favor, diríjase a la recepción del piso 7 y solicite un receptor. El receptor parece un pequeño iPod y se puede usar para escuchar la interpretación en español. Simplemente sostenga el auricular junto a su oído y la interpretación comenzará automáticamente. Gracias.
Okay, thank you. So before we move on, I'd like to ask our clerk today, Tessa, to take the roll call for attendance.
So currently the chair, Councilmember Moreno, is absent. Bayside Community Center is absent. Casa Familiar is absent. City Heights CDC is absent. Chula Vista Community Collaborative is absent. Rose Alcaraz with El Cajon Collaborative. Thank you. Mid-City Can, Belen Hernandez.
Present.
South Bay Community Services Corporation, Mauricio Torre.
Present.
Olivewood Gardens is absent. Operation Samahan, Faye Seligman.
Present.
Urban Collaborative Project, Brian Barry Pollard.
Present.
And Vista Community Clinic, Erica Leary.
Present.
Thank you. That completes the roll call.
Thank you, Tessa. So as you see, and as Tessa mentioned, unfortunately, we still do not have Chair Councilwoman Vivian Moreno with us today. So our first order of business is selecting a chair again for this meeting. And so do I have any nominations or volunteers? I do. If I burn a hole in it. Thank you. So, all right. So we have a motion by, is the motion by Erica? Yeah. And then I just need a second.
I second.
Thank you, Faye. All right. And all of those in favor, if you please raise your hand. Thank you. All those present are in agreement. Thank you, Mr. Pollard, for serving as our chair today. So I'm going to turn it over to Barry, but I'm going to just give him a moment here to get settled.
Tayari for asking me to chair this meeting. Thank you very much. Let's see, for working group members, when you would like to speak, please just raise your hand and I'll call on you by name. In front of you are the iPads where you will find today's agenda and supporting materials by clicking on the arrow on the top left corner, of the screen. Please note that you could zoom in and out using the iPad touch screen. Tessa, can you provide a quick reminder of how the public comments will work?
So if you wish to speak on any item for public comments, you will, if you are in person, I need you to submit a speaker slip to me here at the clerk table. And if you are online joining us by Zoom, please raise your hand. And when you're called upon, you will be unmuted and allowed to speak. And if you have any problems, I think it's I don't even remember, but I think it's *6. Yeah. *9, one of them to raise your hand, but you should also have the button to raise your hand. I'll get better at this, I promise, Chair.
Okay. As noted, are we on the second page? Okay. Thank you, Tessa. Do any members of the working group have any questions on the meeting procedures before we continue? Okay, hi Randy, how are you? Well, I think, has he signed in yet? Should I get to him? Okay. All right, let's begin our meeting on item number 1, public comments. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the working group on any issue within the jurisdiction of Sandag that is not on this agenda. Are there any members of the public?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pro Tem. We do have 2 members of the public currently, one in person and one on Zoom. But first, I'd like to announce for the record that Chula Vista Community Collaborative, Omar Calleros is present. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Randy Torres Van Vleck with City Heights CDC. Yep. Thank you. And our first member of the public to speak on this item in person is Blair B. Go ahead. You can speak from the podium, sir.
Hi, thank you. We have 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, my name is Blair Beekman. I'm new to San Diego. I lived here in the mid to late 80s and then moved back up to San Francisco where I was born and raised. And I'm just returning down here again. And so it's nice to be back here. I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, living in San Jose. In the past 8 years now, I've been working towards community advocacy, towards better accountability practices with technology and data collection for local communities around the Bay Area. It's part of ACLU work that was to basically introduce in 2014 how to step away and end the era of 9/11 and war. And we had a really closed, secretive, opaque system and ways of working in local city governments. These ACLU things came along and I just said, oh my gosh, we're free. This is the chance we can really grow and mature again and work towards open democracy and ideas of peace. And that's what I've been trying to do and learn ever since. So I have personal problems in my own life. And so this was a ways to kind of reintroduce myself to community life and how to really learn how to be a part of community life. So now that I'm in San Diego, I'm trying to do the same efforts of just what can be open communication and good understandings, and always want to develop the good practices of the democratic process. In the San Francisco Bay Area, Bayuwasi is a pretty interesting resource at this time. Since the era of 9/11, they've made some pretty interesting inroads, and they were really working on a future of openness and accountability and to move away from the concepts of anti-terrorism training more towards emergency services planning and natural disaster planning. And I think that's a really good attitude, and they want to do things openly and publicly and transparently as possible. So they do some interesting work. They're a good group of people, and hopefully I can refer to them here sometimes being here. I think I'm a bit disappointed that San Diego UASI works more internally, it seems like, within city San Diego government, and then comes to you, and then comes to I guess it's the UDC, who had their meeting last week that I visited for the first time. So I really want to learn the philosophy of how decision-making can be made for communities without hurting people. And I think there's a real philosophy in how to do that. So I'm interested in these sort of groups that work on health and human services ideas for communities and how that can be of service to the community. So I'm interested in learning, and thanks for your time and my introduction here to understand. Hope we have a good relationship in the next few years that I'll be living here. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair.
Our next public speaker is on Zoom, Craig Jones. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, hi, good morning. Just want to say hi to my friends there at the Social Equity Working Group. Craig Jones, your continuing ex officio community volunteer. I note that with the absences this morning, it's probably because this is the time of year that many nonprofits are gearing up for year-end events, fundraising, services, etc. So hopefully that's the case. I'll comment on agenda items if there's an opportunity. Thank you, and hello to everybody.
Hello, Craig. Good to hear
And that
your
concludes
voice.
the public comments.
Okay. Item number 2, approval of our meeting minutes. So if you have not, please take a gander at the minutes. And then whomever would like to make that motion can do so.
Second it.
Is there a second? Okay, so Rosa seconded. Gotcha. Okay, is there any, so we're going to vote. Do you want to see if there's any questions on the minutes from the folks? Before we call the question, are there any questions about the minutes from anyone, either in public or here?
I do have one online public commenter.
Okay, good.
Mr. Goyo Ortiz, please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to see if there was any way that I could be added to the meeting. I'm listening online, so if not, it's okay. Just want to make that comment.
Hey, Goyo.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Unfortunately, only members that are in person under the current AB 361, you have to be in person in order to participate in the meeting. So at this meeting, you will continue to be considered a member of the public.
No problem, thank you.
Then those that are in favor of approval of the minutes, please raise your hand.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
And then moving on to the next item, number 3, chair report.
Thank you. Okay, so in absence of our chair, I'm Tuari Fola, and Sandag's Principal Regional Planner here at Sandag, and I manage our Sustainable Communities team, and I'm just going to provide a couple of updates on some of Sandag's initiatives. So I also want to just start off with saying thank you, because I know that many of our community-based organizations participated on October 9th at our Sandag Community Fair that was at Rocco Park. We had over 1,000 community members and attendance, and it was really just an opportunity to really talk about all the things that SANDAG does. Often people think of us as one, they think of just kind of one narrow view of what SANDAG is doing. So we had an opportunity to share about a lot of the great projects that SANDAG participates in and leads throughout the region. And one of the highlights of the event and the fair was to share innovative ideas and projects specifically around the request for innovative concepts. We just had a presentation on the request for innovative concepts at our last social equity working group meeting. So this was an opportunity for the community to come and engage and see those presentations out on the weekend. The other update I'd like to give, and I'm sure many of you have seen this in the news, that our low-sand corridor, Los Angeles to San Diego, is currently shut down for commuters due to shifts in the ground. And so we just want to emphasize the importance of how SANDAG is working with our regional partners and the collaboration that we have on that effort, and really thank the state for the $300 million that was awarded to our region to work towards moving our tracks off the bluff. And then the other thing that was more recently that happened earlier this week is related to our Otay Mesa East border crossing. Our SANDAG board leadership, as well as executives within SANDAG and the Mexican government, just signed an agreement on the tolling operations for the Otay Mesa East border crossing. And it's really remarkable that it's actually a split in terms of the revenues. It's split evenly, which is approximately $3.4 billion for each country over the next 4 decades. So we're really happy to see that move forward, and just want to celebrate all of the efforts that went into making that day and that signing happen. And then something I want to bring to this group's attention, and we'll be happy to also send out more information on this, and it's available online currently, but SANDAG has joined efforts with Southern California Association of Governments, otherwise known as SCAG, to do a joint housing forum. This is on November 15th, and it's virtually on Zoom between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. And this is really, we've been doing about quarterly forums with SCAG to talk about housing and housing policy issues and strategies that we can do towards equitable housing development. This upcoming forum is focused specifically on legislation. There's been a lot of new legislation that has happened at the state that applies to our local jurisdictions related to housing. And so we're going to have a conversation and discussion on that. You do need to RSVP to be able to get the Zoom link, but it is free for anyone who would like to attend. And again, that's a virtual meeting on November 15th from 1 to 3 p.m. We'll make sure to send that information out to all of our community-based organizations. And then the last announcement that I have is related to our social equity baseline report. Our staff has come before this working group earlier in the summer in June to give an overview of that report and presentation. And the report is moving towards being produced and publicized as a draft. It's currently scheduled to go through a peer review panel in the month of November. And so we will be circulating the draft report amongst our community-based organizations for any comments that you might like to add that weren't added at that June meeting, to give an opportunity for some of our newer members to be able to engage and participate in that. So we'll send that information out to you via email, but that concludes my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Why, thank you very much. Any working group members, you want to make any comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, if I may, thank you.
Yes, Randy,
Chair.
how are you?
Good to see. Great. Good to see you all in person. It's really exciting. Excellent hybrid model, by the way. I love the work that SANDAG's done to make this accessible online and in person. Thanks to Ari for that report. I did have a question about the tolls. Was that in regard to the new border, the Otay Mesa, and will there be tolls collected for both folks entering Mexico and entering the United States? Is that the case?
I'm looking at my staffer, Alex, who's shaking his head yes. Okay. Yes.
Do we know how any idea on how the funding will be spent? Is it for additional enhancements in the area, or just more for maintenance of the border crossing? Just curious how that toll revenue will be utilized.
Yeah, Alex, would you mind coming and answering that question? I'm not as familiar with working on that project.
Good morning, Alex Estrella, Technology Planning Team Manager. Yes, the agreement focuses on just the facility itself for State Route 11. leading it to the port of entry, and it is for in and out or inbound and outbound. Traditionally, the way the tolls work, it's only could be applied to possible improvements for the facility that's being operated on. But the current sort of structure is where Tori did allude to it. It's kind of a 50-50% distribution based on this agreement.
Appreciate that, and congratulations on a very successful or exciting project for our San Diego Tijuana mega region.
Can I ask a question before you sit down? You know, this has just generated more questions than anything. Thank you for being here and being available. What's the projected revenue on that?
Tori,
Just a ballpark. I don't need to know figures. I just want to get a.
I have in my notes that it was approximately 3.4 billion for each country over the next 4 decades.
Okay, 3 billion over the next 4 decades. It's 40 years. Okay. All right. That's all. I just was curious. Because and what's the 50-50 split? 50% of it's going to go for the maintenance of the facilities itself. What's the other?
It's a little bit more, you know, if you start digging deeper into the breakdown, there's specific elements that Mexico and we agree to sort of off the top expenses to maintain the facility. And then there's this bonding effort that we have to kind of make sure that we meet our bonding requirements that we anticipated. But what we could do is probably come back with the folks that are involved in the revenue agreement to give you that more detailed insight.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we
Are going to public comments on this item. I'd like to state first for the record that Claire Grubner with Olivewood Gardens is present at the meeting. And just for the record as well, Chair, there are no public comments on this item. I apologize, Dr. Bailash just raised his hand for this item.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Bailash.
Thank you. I will put in, well, if I can send it somehow. There is an Economic Research Bureau report on the economic impact for the Otay Mesa East that might be of interest relative to the last question. Thank you.
Nice. Great. Thank you. Item number 4. I guess, let me see, staff will, Paul from Sandag will present an update on the regional anti-displacement strategy. Excellent. Okay, Paul, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. All right, I'm Paul Lafarga, and I'm a regional planner on the Sustainable Communities team here at Sandag. And I'm here to talk to you about a project that we recently kicked off, which is the Regional Anti-Displacement Strategy. I'll be serving as a project manager, and today I'll provide you all with an overview of the strategy and some initial opportunities for feedback. So it's no secret that the San Diego region is amid a severe housing crisis, and that one of its worst impacts is the displacement of people and of communities. The implications of displacement reach beyond one's home to touch employment status, access to healthcare, social networks, educational institutions. Perhaps now more than ever before, it's important that the region is equipped with a comprehensive set of strategies to address the displacement. Appendix B of the 2021 Regional Plan identifies this anti-displacement strategy as a near-term action to accelerate affordable and equitable housing production. This strategy builds on and aligns with another near-term action of the 2021 Regional Plan, which is the Housing Acceleration Program, or HAP. HAP has 3 main strategies, which is local jurisdiction support, data analysis and policy resources, and regional initiatives. So the project goals. So we want to use both quantitative and qualitative data to understand where and to what extent the displacement of low-income households is occurring. And we also want to identify which of these areas facing residential displacement are also targeted for infrastructure investment as part of the 2021 plan. We like to craft region and locality-specific solutions-oriented tools for preventing displacement. And we also want to equip jurisdictions with these tools so they could further develop and adopt displacement policies, anti-displacement policies. Stakeholder engagement is going to be very key in this whole process to learn about displacement pressures and also to vet the validity of the materials created as part of this study. So here's the project team. We're really excited. We have Lissar as the lead consultant. We have Urban Displacement Project on board, UDP. Also have the Global Policy Leadership Academy, or GPLA. So one of the project components is an existing condition assessment, and it'll answer questions like where's displacement occurring, where's the risk of future displacement. And the project team is going to specifically be looking at displacement risk for populations earning between 50 and 80% of the area median income, or AMI, and also be looking at those earning less than 50% of the AMI. The strategy will use UDP, or Urban Displacement Project's estimated displacement risk model. It's a nationally recognized standard for understanding displacement risk. There will be opportunities for feedback, especially when we have the draft deliverable ready. And the work on this has already started, and it will be complete by the winter of 2023. Another project component is the best practice research. So Lissar is going to be conducting the best practice research on anti-displacement strategies, and will be summarizing their findings in a report. And the project team will also look at case studies, targeted discussions with stakeholders, plans, programs, policies, legislation, anything that is not included in existing literature. Again, there'll be opportunities for feedback, especially when the draft deliverable is completed. Work has already started on this, and it should be complete by winter of 2023. Another component is the anti-displacement toolkit. So the toolkit will contain tools and resources that provide locally oriented guidance for implementing anti-displacement policies. It will be informed by the prior work, which is the existing conditions assessment and the best practice research. It will be tailored specifically to the needs and condition of San Diego's, the region's communities. And that work will start after the ECA, the existing conditions assessment, and the best practice research is completed. So we're looking at spring to be completed by January of 2024. We're looking for the summer to have some more opportunities for stakeholder feedback, and then again in the fall when the draft deliverable is completed. As I mentioned, stakeholder engagement is going to be key to this. There'll be opportunities sprinkled throughout the entirety of the project. Lissar and GPLA will take the lead on stakeholder engagement. They'll provide periodic updates, and they'll also be providing presentations of the draft deliverables. And it will be really key to understanding these local displacement pressures. And so to begin some of this engagement and to receive some of the feedback, I'm going to move to a more interactive part of the presentation to begin with some discussion questions. So one of the questions I have is, what's working well about gathering public input from CBOs working with priority or underrepresented communities, including people with lived experience of displacement? And I know we're kind of shifting to the interactive, so if anyone has any ideas or if they want to jump off any of these questions, we don't have to go in order. Yeah, yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think I'm very happy that we're talking about anti-displacement strategy. because we've seen in the past that when there's a new road or projects going in, we've never talked about, the displacement of people who are affected by this transition. Now, I have a quick question. My question is, have you also considered putting into the displacement costs, how you can compensate these people who are being displaced into a certain targetable dollars? Because I know that conversations have been happening between contractors and the owners, but I think in my mind, it is best that we standardize how we deal with that and the dollar amount and how we will factor in different factors when you compensate a family who's being transitioned out of his home. So that's just my input, is to standardize some of the compensation packages for those who are being displaced. The second issue too that I'd like to raise is providing alternative solutions, because many of these people who are displaced could not locate any other places to live. And the ultimate outcome, especially for the low income group, is that they lose their home from the community. They lose their ground, their roots. So I think we should offer some alternative options for them. And I know it's a big process to undertake, but I think it's worth it. And also, at the back of my mind, I'm always asking, what is really affordable housing? So we have not really come to terms with who are affected by this affordable housing. What is it? And then I keep asking about, where does public housing come in? And it seems like, I'm so sorry, I know you've done your job, but I just can't stop asking myself, why isn't public housing being touched in this discussion? I know Tuarian's already given an explanation, it has to do with the grant, but I think we should, in the process, address this. Public housing is a big concern among our community, especially among our patients at Samahan. And some of them are even waiting for 10 to 15 years. And these are seniors, veterans, people with disability. And I think we should address those. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to preface this a little bit more, with these discussion questions, we're talking about how can we better engage you all in your communities as we're seeking input throughout the whole study. So if you have any suggestions about how we should do that, or what's worked well or what hasn't worked well, that would be really helpful as we move forward with the stakeholder engagement process.
Of you newer organizations, do you have any comments on item number 1, what's working well in our outreach towards our communities? Erica?
I'll go, and I'd also encourage Carmela to put in for public comment when the time comes, if she feels comfortable with that, because I know this is a big issue with residents that she works with up in Oceanside. And I would say meetings and focus groups have been working well, because it is a topic that requires some trust. To just have an outsider go do a survey or click a link to talk about the struggles that they're having paying rent or worried about losing their home, I don't feel is a very effective strategy. And then there's also the risk of not being able to offer solutions. It's a challenge because this is an issue that we've been hearing about for years. So to go back and say that there's another study or a plan being made without having a grasp of what those solutions might be, it puts us, to me, in an uncomfortable position. And then I also have a question of how displacement is measured, because we work in a neighborhood that is very close to the beach, and there's a lot of displacement that happens. And so is it measured at the individual family unit, or a broader area that we would lose, capturing if a family in Oceanside gets displaced from one of their apartment complexes, but then finds housing, 8 miles away, they're displaced. So is that captured in this analysis and plan?
So the model is looking at people that are moving in and out of certain census blocks. I think in the future, we're going to have the consultant team come on and talk more about the model with you. And so we understand some of more of those details through perhaps focus groups or meetings like that. But that's my understanding.
I think a model that's working, I would agree with Erica's small group focus groups, utilizing the promotora model or community residents that are trusted to get some information about the importance of this information and getting it out so they know, being transparent about what's going to be done, and working with local community-based organizations that have people on the ground that are able to connect with community members that normally wouldn't engage. I think that's been something that has really worked, and spending the time and effort to really understand how this affects these families. But again, I think Erica nailed it, is creating that safe space for them to be able to talk about. This is something that's very personal to many of our families, and it creates a lot of anxiety. And many times as we're having these conversations, they tend to shut down, but having that trusted individual there to take them through that process, are some of the things that we've seen work.
Sure, thank you.
Hi, this is Belen with Mid-City Can. In the past, we've seen success with surveys or phone calls, but they have to be a combination of gathering information and providing value to them. So you can begin the call by offering information that is valuable to them. If you're facing displacement, these are some of the opportunities you have to access resources, where you can find what you need, right? And then you can go into the more sensitive topics about what they're struggling with and what they're facing with. And I'm always a proponent for also providing some form of compensation if they are completing surveys, because it's their time, right? And if these are already low-income families that are struggling to pay for rent, so monetary incentive is going to help participation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to Sandag staff for bringing forward the regional anti-displacement strategy. This is a strategy that City Heights CDC and our partners at the San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group really wanted to see in the regional plan. We're actually working on a set of anti-displacement values now and strategy around the SR 15 area, where 8 blocks of residents, homes, businesses were displaced to make way for the freeway. So displacement is something that's very personal to a lot of City Heights residents. Many folks have been displaced from their home countries. They've settled here in City Heights and San Diego. As I just shared, we've been physically displaced through mega projects like the SR 15, and now a lot of our residents are at risk of being displaced again through this housing crisis. So this is a top priority for our organization and a lot of the working groups that we're on. So we're excited to see it move forward. I do have some questions. Can you share a little bit more about some of the quantitative and qualitative data that the study will be relying on?
I could come back to you with that. I don't have that right now.
Okay. And then in regards to the engagement strategy, we'd be happy to host Sandag at the SR 15 TEA task force to talk more. But I think because this is something that's very personal, as my colleague shared, it's going to be important for residents to be able to see that Sandag really is prioritizing this. So approaching it with a sense of urgency, but also looking at what can be done in the near term to address displacement. So it's going to be a complicated one, really, because it's something that people are experiencing in a very severe way. We know that publicly polled, the housing crisis continues to be one of the top issues out there. So, and then I think it'll be important to also line up the strategy, overlay it with where the Sandag investments will be. We know about the purple line coming, but we also know that big mega projects like that can cause real estate speculation and land values to go up and leading to more displacement. So I think coupling it with those investments is going to be an important way forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Paul. I would echo what pretty much everyone has already said. We're of course, seeing a lot of this in National City. A lot of our families have already been displaced. And so I think when we're, having, conversations about this, we need to also be bringing solutions to the table and be talking about, what the short-term strategies are so that folks don't feel like they're just kind of getting strung along, as I think a lot of folks, Erica kind of mentioned. So I think, again, the focus groups, the meetings with trusted messengers, but then coming to the table with those, possible short-term strategies. I think another great way to reach our community is through our schools. Our local school system is dealing with, significant decreases in their census. And I think that in itself is that demonstrates that displacement is happening at high rates. So talking with school administrators, I think would be a good opportunity. Thank you.
I echo with what my colleagues have shared, but I'd also like to add that in the Asian and Pacific Islander communities, we have community gatekeepers. And so it will be very helpful to identify who are the gatekeepers, for instance, for the Filipino community, for the Laotian community. It's very diverse, but the way it really works is you really have to work with their leader so that that leader will open up the doors for you. And because the Asian Pacific Islander communities are very close-knit, so they're also very protective of their culture. It's very difficult sometimes to get into their community. But if you find the right person, the right community leader who will open up the door for you, everything will just open up and they will just open up their hearts to you. And we've learned that with our API network at Samahan. The other piece too is that I think if you engage them in a very informal conversation, that's when they will really open up. In a structured setting like this, where we have a microphone and everything is recorded, I don't think it works very well, especially if you're talking about sensitive topics such as this. If you really want to get honest and accurate information, you really have to be a trustworthy person. They will really have to trust you to open up their hearts to you. So I'm just sharing the best practices I've learned working many years at Samahan.
Thank you so much. Oh, right.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Green, okay, great. Sorry. Would be a good advantage to get the community involved. And there is a lot of Arabic language barriers in East County, because I know when we try to talk to them, a lot of them don't understand it. So I think, they've been displaced, and then having them, like I said, just raising displacements, I'm not sure how it would affect the East County residents or any other residents here. I don't know what the individuals or how many communities will be, displaced. And so that to me kind of, is bothersome because, people, these are lives that you're talking about that are going to be displaced, that from what I'm gathering here. So I think that we need to, really be, conscious about those individuals, because they'll be trying to find places. So if we can, like I said, just, get them more involved and give them, be transparent with this issue, the displacement. Because even I'm trying to understand how this is all going to affect everybody, including myself or the residents in our area. So thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to see what the model could look like, or what some initial data from past research has found. This is UDP's renter displacement risk model for San Diego County. It displays areas that have characteristics that have shown to predict renter displacement in California, but we can't expect it to show everything. The map considers renters who are 0 to 50% of AMI, so it's people with very low income, and renters who are 50 to 80% of AMI who are still considerably vulnerable to rent increases. So the areas in the dark red are where the model reports that both people of both income levels are being displaced. The darker orange shows areas where those two income groups are being displaced. Areas in light orange is where displacement is likely to happen, but is not certain. So red, both groups, the lighter orange, one group, and then the lightest color is they think it's happening, but the model is not certain. So Stacy just passed those out because today I'm going to ask you to circle any areas on the map that do not align with your experience on the ground and may require special attention. For any members of the public online who'd like to participate, you could share your input during the item's public comment period. We have the same maps on the screen for online viewers as we do in person here for anyone in the boardroom. So if we're asking you to circle any areas, and we're asking this to receive initial direction to learn about maybe gaps in geography that require deeper dives through stakeholder engagement. I'll circle through it on the slides in a moment, but it has sub-regions. So I know this is really big, but I want to show the whole county. And then the other ones have focused on, like this one's South Bay. We have kind of the central El Cajon area, and then up in North County as well. I'll cycle through these slower so online viewers can get a chance to look at them. So I'm gonna ask to take the next 3 minutes to complete the exercise. You could write any notes you like on the paper as well. I'll collect it after, and then it'll be part of the public record. If you'd like to write your name or your service area, that's fine. If you prefer to leave it off since you don't want to, that's okay too. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind before we end this.
Okay.
Chair, would you mind if I ask Paul a question about
Please do, Randy.
Can you provide some clarification? Paul, you want us to circle the areas that we think are priorities?
Priorities or maybe don't align with your local knowledge on the ground, something where you're like, that doesn't look right, or if there's something that's happening where it might make you fear that displacement will occur. We're just trying to vet this material with your knowledge on the ground. So you're free to write anything you like, but that's where we're trying to get this, is to understand where we need to further engage the stakeholder efforts.
All right, thanks for that clarification.
Also,
Erica, go
just to
ahead.
clarify on the map, the orange line, is that the rail line? And then the gray, is that
Yeah.
I-5?
Thank you for those questions. Yeah, so those are the transit lines, is that kind of gray going all the way up, and then the darker ones are the roads or the freeway infrastructure.
Say that one more time, right? Because it looks like to me that orange is the rail line, right?
Yeah, correct. The orange is the rail line, and then the dark grays are like the road system.
Road system as in, we have new CBOs folks here. So what
Those
is
are
that?
freeways.
Thank you. And the trolley lines are depicted as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a green line. Okay.
And if you circle an area, just let us know why.
Hey, next time color code these, would you? The orange line, the purple line, the blue line. Yeah. And then also, Paul, if you can, and this is going to bleed over into my comments that I mentioned, but we need more detail maps. Okay, I know this is like a 50,000 foot level. But I mean, if you really, really want to let us drill down, you got to give us something to work with. This is a start.
Yes,
right?
It's initial reaction here.
Yeah, and I got that. I got that. I'm just sort of keeping the back of your mind. The more specific you can get, the more details we can give you, right? And then I would also love LaSar to be here and join at the hip with you. Every time you come to our group, we've worked with LaSar quite a bit. And it's important that we get input from the very beginning, even before the draft. So give us a chance to make input on the draft before that comes out. That's what you pay us for, right? And this is our wheelhouse. So we can tell you and help LaSar in this, because this is going to be a very delicate process, as I'm sure you know.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, can I just ask a point of clarification? Maybe Stacy is offering this. I know that we can probably also provide this exact same document to our CBO outreach team so that they can have a little bit more time to dive in and do this. is there a deadline associated with when you need to receive this feedback so that we can maybe have the opportunity, as Barry's saying, to drill down a little more into some of the communities to be able to provide this feedback to the consultant on the timeline?
I think within the next couple of weeks,
Okay.
I could pass this out to you on an email, and if you want to take some more time.
And is the tool right here, and I know maybe I should know this, but is the tool available online for us to send people the link to the tool so that if they don't find this to be suitable and they want to drill down, they could actually zoom in and screen capture? So that could probably help then, Barry, with your comment, to be able to actually have the online version of this to allow you to zoom in as close as you'd like.
And so we could send this down to our people that we meet with monthly basis, right?
Perfect.
I mean,
That'd be great.
So the more information you could give us, it will be accurate, it will be community driven, it will be in the neighborhoods and not just the CBOs, right? We need to get into that population of people that don't come to these meetings.
Definitely. This is just one stakeholder group that we'll be addressing throughout this process.
Okay. That's a very good point. Let us play with it. Give us some tools. I'm sure that's no problem for you guys.
Not at all. That'd be great. So maybe just another 30 seconds and then we'll send it out again, but I'll just collect this for the public record for now.
Do we write our names on these? Do you need to reference back where our comments are coming from?
That would be helpful if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, thank you.
Start to wrap this up so we can move on to the next item. I really appreciate all of your detail, all the feedback. Once we have these, I'll turn it back to the chair.
I have a couple questions.
Oh, that's correct, yeah.
I wanted to reiterate what everyone had said earlier about and this is not for you, this is for the contractors. So share this with them, please, is don't rest on the laurels of the CBOs, get into the neighborhoods, right? Specifically, there's planning groups that I'm sure you guys have on your list of getting planned. There's also there's little things that typically one does not think of in this day and time. The Kiwanis Club, right? Any other civic engagement sort of entity that these communities have. We were suggested that we hit education, hit those clusters. Clusters are from high school groups, and the elementary schools and the middle school grades feed into clusters centered at high schools, okay? And that's where you're gonna get parents. That's the old PTA, right? And so that is a critical element if you want to get into the veins of the community, right? The families. One of the words that I didn't hear that you might want to invite the consultants to get more familiar with is this causes trauma in these families. And there are trauma-informed groups that will help these developers address that, because that is what they are talking about, moving the families, income, changing their lifestyle. I mean, you name it. Those are major, major, major issues for families. Get aligned with the trauma-informed folks. I can help with that, and probably other folks as well, okay?
Definitely follow you up on that. Thank you.
Clusters, education. Please have the consultants not be shy coming to us before rather than after. A lot of times we do outreach, right? But a lot of organizations just rest on the fact that says, oh, I've checked that box. I have been to the Urban Collaborative Project, so Southeastern San Diego should be covered. No. No, there are a lot of different venues that they being the consultants, need to work in, right? And the only way they're going to get familiar is we are the trusted messengers and they should use us. We can open up those doors for these residents that otherwise they're not going to want to talk to a bunch of people that don't look like us coming in this community and saying, we're going to displace you. Well, we don't trust you knuckleheads anyway, right? Quotation mark knuckleheads. But so just be sensitive, and they've got to come to us. They can't use you to send you to this meeting. We need to know who they are. Housing is going to be an intricate part in this whole thing. And it will help us to get educated because this is a new service for us as well. And there was a comment about what else to do in the future. Get people with housing experience to start telling us what's going on. Got to educate us. We all know probably enough to be dangerous with, but not necessarily enough to be making big decisions about. Okay? Other than that, good luck, my friend, and we'll be seeing you, I'm sure.
Thank you all. That was very helpful. As I mentioned, we're just kicking this off, so all that feedback is very helpful. We'll be sure to go much further than just the CVO engagement. But I wanted to kick it off and just let you all know that we're starting this project and get some initial direction. I definitely got that today, so thank you all.
Paul, thank you very much.
Just one last.
Sure.
I just want to bring up faith-based communities in the process because a lot of people go to this kind of settings to unload their anxieties and trauma.
Sure. Go ahead, Elaine.
I have a final question. I understand that this is part of the goals from the 2021 regional plan, but just to make sure I understand this big picture, how is this report strategy going to influence the 2025 regional plan?
Might pass that to Tweri.
That's a great question, Belen. So this is an implementation action of the 2021 regional plan, but as you know, as part of the, we always begin the development of the next plan shortly after we complete the existing one. And so we are hoping to see the policies and the information that comes out of this study be able to help us in how we're putting forward plans, projects, and strategies in the 2025 plan. We're also hoping that it can help inform us when it comes to outreach and engagement, not just from the plans perspective, but when we are starting to implement the actual projects that SANDAG is responsible for implementing, but also being able to provide this policy guidance document to our local jurisdictions who may not currently have anti-displacement policies and measures in place for the projects that are built at the local level. So we're hoping to have it as a guidance document that can inform what we are doing in the 2025 plan, recommendations that may need to be made, or additional layers of policy that need to be embedded and new added to 2025, but then also seeing it as something that could be a guiding document for when we're moving forward to implementation, education, outreach, and what we need to embed in those projects, and then hopefully passing it along to locals so that they could develop something more granular for them at the local scale.
Great, thank you, Terry.
I've got comment too, since I looked and we're now on item 6, which is what's going to happen in the future. We got to go to 5. Okay, so, but one of the things I sort of want to put out there in the universe is that as these discussions about housing are being developed and we're moving in the right direction with increasing housing, I don't have a good warm and fuzzy feeling about any long-term planning. You're going to put a whole bunch of multi-family, low-income units into these communities, and what is that going to look like 15 years from now? I personally don't want Southeastern San Diego to be an underserved community forever. I've heard no conversations. I'm sure San Ysidro doesn't want to be an underserved community forever. Be mindful as these intermediate putting out the fire sort of issues are being addressed, there are long-term consequences, right? And I'm not sure if any community in any city wants to be a low-income community forever. That is not being discussed. I think SANDAG would benefit from bring that issue to the table. Even a projection. People know what these are going to look like. We need to start talking about What if we do X, this is what's going to happen 10 years from now. This is what this means. And I see it happening in slow motion. Now, I am not an anti-affordable guy before I get labeled or anything like that, right? However, I view my community as the most important thing that I do when I come to these meetings. And I would be remiss if I wouldn't ask the powers that be, in this case Sandag, to just have that in the back of your mind and not so much in the back. Make it a factor that is dealt with. So some of these other planning groups can understand that. People that are funding all of these projects need to understand that there's a long-term implication to it. So I want to put that in the universe and on tape to remind folks as they look at this process that there are bigger items to consider. Okay? Okay. I'm done. Shall we
Excuse
go
me,
to
Chair,
item
we
5?
need to take public comments on item 4. We do have several public comments at this time. I have 2 public commenters in person, Carmela Munoz.
Oh, thought she looked familiar.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. As Erica mentioned, currently our community residents from the Crown Heights neighborhood in Oceanside has been experiencing the displacement. And this is very hardworking community, and landlords are increasing rent every other month. And even though there is a law that they cannot increase more than 10%, something like that, I think they haven't been able to manipulate that law. And, you know, when they increase the rent every other month, even though it's $50 or $100, is adding up to the point where the residents are not available to pay and they have to move out to the neighborhood. So we really need consistent policies that support these communities. And forgive me if I'm speaking political incorrect, but many times I think we just show on papers that we went and outreach low-income communities, Hispanic speakers, and other ethnicities, and we check the box, and it looks really nice on the papers, on these reports, but really the benefits don't get, you know, our community don't receive those benefits. And I'm afraid that we are going to survey these residents, that they are going to be able to participate in focus groups. And after that, they won't see, they won't get any benefits. So please keep in mind that we need more funds to implement those projects, because housing is a big issue in our communities, and our community deserve, you know, as Barry mentioned, I don't want to see my community to be low-income community forever. So these are very hardworking people who work hard to provide to their families, and they deserve to be able to live in a decent place. Affordable housing is not affordable. I know a person who has to put $100,000 in order to live in affordable housing, because I think years ago, I think they require only certain percent to go to your payment, and not everyone can afford that, you know. So if these families don't make enough, I think they would never be able to live in this affordable house, because it's not affordable. So just please keep in mind, and I think in regards to the second question, focus group surveys are good tools to gather information from community members. Thank you.
No, thanks, Chair. I want to, thank you, Carmela, for your comment. I really appreciate the urgency that you're approaching this, and I know that Vista Community Clinic does that in all the work that you do. So I really appreciate your comments. And that reminded me of something that I agree to, that, again, this is going to be a really sensitive issue for a lot of folks. We do need to combine the conversations with immediate opportunity for immediate action and relief. And so that reminded me about the San Diego Eviction Prevention Collaborative, which City 8 CDC is a co-founder of, along with several other groups. And we partner with like Casa Familiar and others to do workshops. But you can go to housinghelpsd.org. Make sure it's the .org, not the .com. There's a different website, housinghelpsd.org. And we help folks that are experiencing evictions and at the risk of losing their home. So we have a program called 1 Month Away that does help folks get their last months of rent, and there's certain criteria for that. And we also do Know Your Rights workshops with lawyers that are trained on housing rights, tenant rights. So check out housinghelpsd.org by the San Diego Eviction Prevention Collaborative. Thank you.
We'll be talking, Randy. I'd like for you to come to our monthly town council meeting. Excellent. That's good service. Thank you.
Our next public speaker will be Carol Lewis. Followed by Chair, we have 3 Zoom speakers to follow. Ms. Lewis.
Is it on? Well, thank you, Paul, for the presentation, and it's great that you're going to be heading up this project, so I appreciate that. I just wanted to comment that you're looking at in El Cajon, areas that are bordered by the 8 and the 94 freeway, and sometimes we overlook at the impact of the 94, what it is having on our families, because those are a lot of individual homes. They're not as much the multifamily units. So these are older, small homes, and they're occupied by many of our refugees. So it's an area that's of concern because of air quality, traffic control. And so I want to make sure that we look at the 94 area as well as just the 8 and the 67. I know that 67 and the 52 there is also a concern as well too, but they're more commercial, whereas that 94 has a lot of individual homes. Also, language is always an issue with El Cajon. So I want to make sure that you're looking at Pashto, Dari, Aramaic, and some of the other languages as well as just Arabic. But I think that's why focus groups are the most important, because of the fact that we can really talk to the people in their native language and then give them the opportunities to have one-on-one, because a lot of them are being impacted individually and the trauma again. So thank you, Barry, for bringing up the trauma, because these families are coming from very traumatic situations. So I want to make sure that we're sensitive to that, remain sensitive to that. And then we're also looking at the multimodal corridor there along the 8. And so I'm not sure how that's going to be impacting our families, but that is where our highest concentration of multifamily units are. So we want to make sure that we are talking to those families too. Every day I'm seeing families come into our office who have Section 8 housing vouchers but cannot find housing. And if they are losing their housing, they can't afford the housing that is out there now, because many of our aging apartment buildings are now doing the repairs that they had put off for so long. And so they're charging double their rents than what they were before COVID hit. So we're seeing that housing crisis a lot in El Cajon right now. I know some of our refugee families are being placed in La Jolla because there are no homes anywhere in East County. So just keep that in mind as you are moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have one more in-person public speaker, Blair B. Please go ahead. And he will be followed by Craig Jones on Zoom.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Sorry for my disturbance to the previous public comment. I wish my voice was more of a whisper when I could talk. I need to learn how to do that better. Sorry. For this item, in being from the San Francisco Bay Area, I've just learned kind of, I'm not the most knowledgeable person, but I have a basic learning process, how I understand these sort of issues. And from what the report was described as, it's my hope that it not only can work towards, the future, how to displace people from displacement, but also what are the steps to prepare for so we don't have the displacement in the first place? I think that may have been part of the purpose of the studies and the reports. I don't know that work well enough. I should. I wish I did. I'm better understanding the concepts of affordable housing and new concepts of what's called mixed income that wasn't mentioned here today, that I think in the Bay Area Metropolitan Transportation Commission, I can't remember, it's the MTC, it's the major, source of where all our housing goes through. And they work with Sacramento on these issues. And it's their goal that by 2030, they're going to start a plan, 2029 technically, they're going to start a plan of mixed income housing ideas, which is the concepts of how do you bring together very low and extremely low income with, moderate and almost market rate housing ideas. It's a concept I think we all understand in our brain, yet we can't talk about it openly, and we can't really work on it on an everyday level. And I think those practices of mixed income offer an incredible range of flexibility and choices, and how, people were mentioning here, they don't want a feature of to be a low income community forever. And I think that's just going to be an important key. And I just wish that we can start talking about those things now instead of 2029 and 30. And I always stress this point up in the Bay Area that I wish we can talk about these things more openly and regularly as a part of this process. Good luck how you can do that. And there's incredible funding packages that are going on at the state level because of this era of COVID that we're just starting to understand. And if we really organize ourselves, I really think we can bring out our better human principles and values to help fund a really important future. We can really do some amazing good work now, I feel. So good luck in those efforts. And good luck at how to introduce issues before displacement happens. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Craig Jones, followed by Tim Bailash. Craig Jones, go ahead, please.
Thank you for this, and I'm glad Sandag is looking into this. Speaking to the discussion questions that started off this discussion, it's pretty obvious that you've got a set of community-based CBOs here that are well placed to get the input that's needed. So I'm hoping that the budget for this project has a specific explicit line item for monies to go to the CBOs to help them fund the ability to get this feedback. These CBOs are, not extremely well-funded organizations. So providing funding to get the input that's needed from the CBOs is going to be important. Randy earlier alluded to the impact of public development projects like transportation projects that often have the effect of increasing land values adjacent to where they go. There is a means of capturing that increased land value by public projects and putting those dollars back into affordable housing. So that should absolutely be looked at down the line. We need to not just understand that how displacement happens, but how to address it. I've got a question for Paul. Displacement is not just to individual residential households. Displacement impacts entire communities at the cultural level. So I'm wondering if this project will look at displacement not just of residences, but of community-based mom and pop small businesses as well. What are the commercial impacts, and what is the impact of cultural displacement? So if you could answer that question, I'd appreciate it. And then on the map, finally, it's curious to me that Camp Pendleton shows up in a shaded area, and I'm wondering why. I mean, should that not be permanent, affordable for the enlisted personnel? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tim Bailash. Go ahead when you're ready, Mr. Bailash.
Thank you, committee, for taking my comments. My name is Timothy Bailash. I'm in Mid-County Coastal San Diego. I want to thank the acting chair specifically and echo today's many member comments relative to the problems. Hats off to Sandag for tackling this housing albatross, and good luck. I don't envy the task. There's so much diversity in the county and micro communities, and I applaud the efforts to reach out and understand those, particularly displacement. I hope this question relates to the discussion. There's currently a Measure D on the November ballot, and it seems that it might affect the ability for apprenticeships and construction trades for the young coming out of schools and their eventual ability to afford housing. I would welcome a direction to look at, because I find this kind of confusing. As well, much of the government discussions relate to money and budgets and financing in the different meetings I go to. We tend not to discuss enough the economics and issues that would be termed gentrification or market creep in terms of access to housing. Individual citizen survival economics needs to be part of that, contrasted to increasing wealth economics. Is there just not enough houses, no matter how much money people had, or is housing not just affordable overall to lower incomes? Let's be frank. Money, legalities, sales profits, and tax revenues fuel a lot of the plans to expand, rather than accessibility of those who are still here. Many of the desirable areas for redevelopment are displacing retired seniors, or plan to, who are in single dwelling units and on fixed incomes or Social Security. 1 to 3 month vacate leases make them very vulnerable. Where will they go? And as well, that area might be an example south of Carroll Canyon in La Mesa, I believe it is, that appeared will be displaced in the coming days. I might add that the cost of housing and food absolutely, and as a percentage of incomes, might be a good measure. And accessible wealth for down payments has been talked about. Parents who confront a down payment is not well measured in the statistics. And so the area also of increasing populations, how that impacts, is sometimes hidden in the discussions. Thank you for taking my comments, and please, continued access and efforts by all those involved are appreciated.
Thank you so very much. Are there any other comments?
Yes, our final speaker on this item, Ari Punaki in virtual. Go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ari Punaki. I'm with Lasar Development Consultants. Just want to let you know that we were here and we've got your comments down, and we'll be sure to incorporate that into the plan and the execution strategy for collecting that input. So just want to let you know that we're here and we're listening and we're taking notes.
Excellent. Good timing. Thank you very much.
And that concludes the public comments on this item.
And are there any comments that you all up here at the working group would like to address based upon the public comments that we've just heard? I'm that guy that will let, if it's up to the discretion of the chairperson, that we could have some degree of interaction with them. Public comment to me is a two-way street. So unfortunately, that's not the case in a lot of Brown-related meetings, but I think this one, we have that flexibility. Okay, Generation 511 Traveler Information System. And it's information item, I think. Alex, are you good? Good. Welcome back, Alex. You wear a couple of hats, I see, huh?
I do.
Bless you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. What I like to do is, before I turn it over to our consultant team who's going to help with the presentation, I would just like to provide some context and essentially some opening remarks for this item. My name is Alex Estrella, and I'm the principal planner and lead our technology planning team for Sandag. So earlier, you guys asked a question on the ITS technology for the border, so our team is involved in that. But essentially, in terms of background, you've had extensive discussion on some of the early action projects for the 2021 regional plan. We have similar things like that on, advancing and making sure that we prepare ourselves for future funding as whether state or federal comes down the line. On the technology side, as you know, one of the key components in the 2021 regional plan is the Next operating system, or the Next OS. And ideally, what Next OS focuses on is looking at technology components, systems, that really the idea is they're making sure that we have a connected environment, that the systems talk to each other, and also consider technology solutions. But along the way we kind of plan for those elements is that we want to make sure that we gain as much input as possible along the way, so then we could prepare these technical documents. So for example, when we think about technology, one of the key reports is what we call our concept of operations reports. I don't want to get too technical, but the idea here is that through various stakeholders or input, we try to understand how a system or how a technology would work for everybody. And I would say that in the past practice, Sandag would do a fairly good job in bringing our local agency stakeholders together and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this technology. And they would provide great context and how it's system. But as part of this 2021 regional plan, what we're trying to do is also be committed to make sure that we engage the public through this process. And that's something fairly new as we proceed with any technology component. So what you'll be hearing about today is one of those elements is the next generation 511 system. And just to give you some context, the existing 511 system has been in place since 2007, so it's been a while. And the type of information that's provided in that system is freeway information, incident, accident, but also provides some transit information. And that's available via, when you call, or what we on the technical side is called our interactive voice response system, where somebody calls, get information. And it's also available on the Sandag website. But we also understand that there's other systems that provide travel information with our transit agencies, Caltrans. But part of this ConOps, we're taking a fresh look as this travel information system, make sure that we provide valuable services to our customers, and that's all our customers. And that's essentially the backdrop here. So I'm going to turn it over to Stacy, who's going to walk us through, gain some insight and provide you with insight on what the ConOps is, but along the way, gain some insight from all of you. And then we'll be available to answer any questions after the presentation.
Thank you so much, Alex. Good morning. I'm Stacy Unholz with Arcadis IBI Group, and I am here to talk about 511, as Alex mentioned, the region's traveler information service, and ask for your input on what features and functions and content the system needs to include. I'm the project manager supporting Sandag's development of a concept of operations for a new next generation system. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So Sandag is working now to conceptualize a better system that meets the needs of the region's travelers, and in particular for this discussion, the needs of traditionally underrepresented and disadvantaged groups. We're gathering input from stakeholders like yourselves, as well as a long list of other stakeholders, to make sure the concept for a new system is more equitable, easier to use, and sustainable. We want to make sure that we've heard from you, from the groups that you represent, the people you represent, from the social equity perspective, regarding what you and your partners need in a traveler information or trip planning service. So the purpose of my visit today really is to reach out to your group and ask for your input. At the end of my presentation, I'm going to give you a link to a survey, which is the method by which we are going to solicit your input. First, I'm going to provide you just a brief background of the project, what 511 is and how exactly we'll be asking for your input. If you could go ahead to the next slide, please. And then the next one. Thank you. So some of the attendees today may be familiar, some not so familiar with our region's travel information service. As Alex mentioned, it was deployed in 2007, and you can access the system online at 511sd.com or by dialing 511 from your phone anywhere within the region. The current system is it's an information portal, both on the web and via the phone system. It's a starting point that provides access to integrated travel information as well as external access to partner agencies. The traffic map provides current incidents, traffic speeds, road and lane closures, construction events, several other types of information. The system provides links to partners and categories of information such as local transit partners, commuter rail, iCommute, access to freeway service patrol. In fact, you'll recall that Tueri mentioned at the beginning of this meeting that the Lausanne rail corridor operations have been interrupted. This is the kind of information that travelers can expect to obtain on 511. It actually is on 511 currently, but improving the mechanism and the design and the way that that is disseminated is part of what we're asking for your input on. Next slide, please. So there have been several upgrades and updates to the system over the years. However, it really no longer meets the needs of travelers. The design, both in terms of the user interface, but also the types of information offered, are really not aligned with best practices anymore, especially in terms of serving a community that may be more focused on transit, on access services, on shared mobility. The service doesn't currently support those needs. Data is not integrated. It's not as updated as it should be. And so we're soliciting your input to inform a new concept for 511. We're looking for the best and the most useful ways to improve. All the information available through our public transportation agencies, other partners, private sources of data, it all needs to be integrated and available as a one-stop shop where users can plan multimodal trips, book them, pay for them in a single platform. We're looking to advance 511 locally to be a full service system. Perhaps most relevant here in this discussion is how can we ensure that the concept we develop and ultimately the system that would be based on that concept is equitable, is focused on meeting the user where they are, and is intuitive and easy to use. Next slide, please. And the next, thank you. So let me give you just a little bit of background about the project itself. We're developing ConOps. At a high level, ConOps is a description of how the system will be used. And to develop an accurate and useful ConOps, we need your input. How can 511 provide equitable access? What languages should be included? What do we need to consider to ensure that a next generation system is designed and developed to meet the vision and the guiding principles, which I'm showing here on the slide. The vision, I'll read it out. What we hope to achieve in the system ultimately is to address the vision that San Diego Regional 511 is used by everyone all the time as their primary resource for all their traveler information needs. It's a forward-thinking high bar, but that's what we use as a general vision to support the work that we are doing. In addition, we have developed through meetings with several stakeholders and some of our technical partners, the guiding principles and goals, but we'll stick, I think, for the purposes of this discussion, the guiding principles, which will underlie all of the work that we complete to put together a full concept. The system needs to be equitable, easy to use, user-centric, and sustainable. We'll go to the next slide, please. So a little more information on what a ConOps is, just for some, to bring it all together. It's focused on the needs of all users, but in this discussion, we're focused on, of course, the potential users' needs from a social equity perspective. What languages should we consider? How can we promote access for all users of the transportation system? Create a platform that will provide multimodal options. What should we consider in terms of facilitating a system that allows users, all users, to be able to plan, book, and pay in an effective, efficient, easy manner? We want to make sure that the coordination that is necessary with our international partners, our regional partners, adjacent 511 systems, that it has all been included in the development of this concept. And of course, Sandag was one of the early adopters of 511 back in 2007, and we want to benefit from lessons learned so that we make sure we bring forward information that we know from running the system for as long as Sandag has. And so next slide, please. So please consider visiting the SurveyMonkey link to provide your input. We have a link for English input, only for Spanish. If it's appropriate, Tueri, I can copy these links into the chat. And I'm also happy to email these links out as well, if that's helpful. I hope that you'll share the SurveyMonkey link wide so we can ensure we've collected the input necessary to craft a useful, efficient, and equitable system. So I followed a very robust and long presentation. My presentation was, I think, meant to be very, very short, high level. I will ask if there are any questions that anybody has, and also make sure, Tueri, if you can let me know if it's okay to put that information in the chat as well.
Thank you very, very much for the presentation. Let's start with our working group for any comments, questions that you may have.
Okay, just some clarifying questions. There's currently a phone service and a website, but there's no mobile application, correct?
That is correct. That's correct. Yeah.
So then my input would be this would be helpful if it was integrated into the Pronto app, because I'm having trouble understanding what I would get from the service that I could not get on Google Maps or the Pronto app, which are things that I already carry on my phone. And I think that would promote using it and people finding it, because I was unaware of the service, but I think it's pretty cool. Thank you.
Exactly. I appreciate that input, and it is very valid to say a lot of people already get their information from other third-party systems. It's not necessarily like a competition. I think that none of the systems need to be the only system. We want to make sure that Sandag is addressing the obligations of a public agency in collecting and disseminating the information that's available. And when other private firms and other services do as well, that's fine. It's not necessarily an overlap. It's a additional resource.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Lynn?
Yeah, hi. I just want to share with you that we shared this 511 feature to our group, focus group, and I think Barry was there. And one of the comments said was, most of our communities using Google Apps. So I was just wondering if we can do some features that are beyond what Google App is doing. And I also want to share with you that in our clinic at Samahan Health Centers, our referral coordinators have been referring our patients to this 511, and it's been very useful to get schedules for their bus transportation. It's been very helpful, but I would just like to air that the competition with Google App is fierce, and I think we should go beyond what they're offering that will serve our community better.
Absolutely. I appreciate that input. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes? Claire, and then Erica, you're next.
Thank you. I would just echo what Belen was mentioning. I think, if we're looking at usership and wanting to make sure that folks are accessing, this system, integrating it into something that we already have, like the Pronto app, I think is a good way to make it more accessible, expand the usership. And it's also just, it's something that's already on our phones.
Exactly. Thank you.
I think my question is similar, and I also am not as familiar with it. I'm a very limited transit writer, so I was just wondering clarification of the relationship between NCTD and MTS, and if they would be required to give real-time data through this system as well. Just one quick little example. Carmel and I had an event to go to on Saturday, and for a while we contemplated taking the coaster because we were traveling with a group of teenagers, and then we saw a news story Friday that the coaster was closed this weekend. So if we had planned 2 weeks out that we were going to take the coaster on Saturday, we would have been out of luck that day. And so if this is a system that we can promote and everybody would get more timely information, that could be helpful, but not something that infrequent transit riders like myself would necessarily think to check.
Absolutely. And maybe it's a situation where you know you're going to plan a trip, you know you want to take the coaster, and maybe you set yourself up for an alert for any interruptions, any delays, anything that happens on the route you're planning to take. We are, I wouldn't say required, but yes, we plan to include in the concept the integration of transit data with traffic data all in a single in a single platform.
Any other questions? Yes, Rosa?
No, I think you answered my question, because it's going to be a combination of the transit and also the automobile, right? It'll be the combination of both. The information will be there combined.
Yes, that's the concept. Not only that, but all kinds of other information, micro transit and shared mobility and e-scooters and shared bikes. And really, we are looking at the universe of all the data that is available in the region. We want to gather it and have it be part of the system if it makes sense, if it addresses the needs of the travelers. It's again, it's at this point for the ConOps, it's an idea of what the system could be. These are not system requirements. And actually, it's something that I should mention also in terms of taking the survey. We are soliciting ideas of what you would want to see. Reach for the stars, right? Some of the ideas that we receive may be appropriate for a system, some of them maybe not. But right now, we want to open the floodgates to solicit any input that you have.
Yeah, I have another question. So would this also, like for seniors who are a little slow in technology, would you be able to, would they be able to acknowledge it or work through it easily?
It's an excellent question. Thank you for saying that. Accessibility, the theory of equity, part of that is that the interface needs to be useful to all different kinds of people, and not everybody is of the same level of technical savviness. How exactly is an interface developed to address the needs of a range of capabilities? That's something we'll work on, but that is actually a very salient point to the kind of information we're looking to receive.
And so you'll have like a drop-down menu with the different languages that are available as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't talk about the specific design, but I will say that we are certainly, absolutely, we're looking to have the system be bilingual, maybe multilingual. We want to hear from you. What other languages are necessary? What else should we consider having the system available in? What other languages?
Okay, thank you.
Just one more comment I make. I think you mentioned the border region information, and I'd also suggest ways to easily connect to our other neighboring regions. So especially for us up in North County, there's a lot of travel up to Riverside County and then Orange County and LA. So if there's a way to integrate to click to the next region's system, that could be helpful for users too.
I appreciate that. And actually, transfers to adjacent 501 regions is part of the system. And so marketing and making sure that the travelers and the residents know that it's there, that's an issue, right? It's there, but it's not necessarily as apparent as it should be or as accessible as it should be.
Any other questions before I chime in? I got a couple questions. One is when I love the phrase of reach for the stars, because my next comment is doing exactly that. we have the model in place existing that this could replicate, and there's one word, Alexa. It's a method that works pretty effectively, that would be easily accessible to a lot of folks, and just using that sort of model to interact with other districts, to not only tell us about the conditions of the road, because let's face it, we're going to have to get people out of cars. It's either going to be soon or it's going to be later. That needs to be in the theme of what you guys are doing. So the word competition scares the hell out of me between these different mobilities of transportation. Where does the 511 funding come from? Is that from the Transportation Department statewide?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm thinking, will that fee structure or that income, that investment structure allow for this cross pollination of different modes of transportation, right? And so it is going to be important to know what's more effective for my trip. Is it going to be the coaster? Is it going to be depending upon the time of the day or whenever? Is the trolley a better option? It would be nice if we could have that and pose that question. What's the better option if I want to go to Anaheim on Saturday afternoon?
Exactly. And not just what's the better option, but through what lens? What's the better option ecologically, the carbon emission? What's the fastest? What's the cheapest?
You betcha. It needs to do all of those things. And that's why I'm sitting here, why reinvent the wheel when you could go in there and Alexa this and say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. What's the best way to get there?
Absolutely.
Alexa may be able to do that now, quite frankly. I don't know. I haven't asked. Ultimate goals is to get people out of the cars, Alexa, and just enforcing the collaboration between the different types of transportation, I think has got to be one of the values, because that's the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. And the more we talk about the fact that our housing is right near transportation sectors, right? It's not by chance, it is by design, right? I thought that just having that conversation will make it easier for the population in general to start getting used to it. Because right now, I mean, look at what happened with the fee for mileage thing. The opposition got a hold of it and stole the whole game, and it never really got off the ground. It never really got off the ground. And so the more I think we start talking about that reality, I think people are going to slowly start adjusting, right? This could be one of those tools, is all I'm saying. Let's make this more of a transportation-oriented tool rather than a freeway tool or a MPS tool. Make it in transportation in general. That's my 2 cents.
Integrated multimodal options. Not just options, but planning, booking, and paying is what we're reaching for when we reach for the stars.
Okay, and this survey, is this only for us?
Okay, so the survey is for you, and it really is for, I leave it to you to distribute as you see fit. It is appropriate for the public. It's appropriate for your partners. We always want to err on the side of more input. More, it's some may be duplicative. That's okay. It's for you to distribute to your partners, the people you represent, as you see fit, and it's for you.
You do realize that a lot of our partners don't have access to computers.
We could also make that available and handwritten to as well, or coordinate with Tuari to solicit input.
Okay.
It's very short. It's a 5-minute survey. It would be very easy to just print up and distribute physically as well.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe a code might be easier too.
I'm sorry?
QR code.
Oh, okay. No, yes, absolutely.
Talk about accessibility. Those that have it, like, people don't have computers, but they got phones.
Yeah. We actually had this available during our weekend event. I think it was 2 weeks ago. So we have that available, so we could work with Terari on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and this, just to be clear, that this is just internet, so you can access it on a computer or on a smartphone.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments, either from the working group or from the public about?
I do have public commenters on this item, Chair.
Nice.
I have one in-person public commenter and 2 virtual. We'll take Blair B. first, in person. And he will be followed by a virtual commenter, Craig Jones.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks a lot for this item. I guess it may be, hopefully you can be patient with me, that a regular way I think I want to be working is that public comment time is describing what I've been learning in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then talk about that here. And with the advantage of Zoom these days, I can also then talk with the SF Bay Area about what you guys do. And so I'm interested how that can work. I'm not very knowledgeable, but our depth of knowledge is lacking, but I'm hope we have a good spirit for it. So with that in mind, you know, these sort of items in San Jose, they have created a back in the mid 2015s, teens, I guess, they created they worked on a 311 system to really address the future of taking away all the you know, extra calls that go into police that can be go through a 311 line. I don't know, just to put it out there as an idea of what can be of help to you in developing this 511 service. The 311 service in the Bay Area and in San Jose does a lot, and a lot of Bay Area cities are learning from the 311 program. It's got a lot of ways it can be working, and to check that out, I'd recommend. And to also ask the question, in case of emergencies, it just a thought dawned on me that 511 may be a good way to have a solid line of mobile communication available to the everyday public. You know, there's systems in the Bay Area called Bayrix. The Bayrix system, it's the ways to have interoperability, telephone service, emergency service. Maybe there's a way, is this 511 can be a way that the everyday public can have that sort of help also, and to have those lines in place and organized. Just a suggestion to throw it out there. And with my remaining time, a thank you to the words, the person mentioned interested in the ideas of technology and how the process of technology can be talked about with community. It's really important to me that the future of this technology and the mobile app services that you'll be providing for this be an open, accountable process. And what we can do with that openness and accountability, I think, an amazing tool to learn how to really ask questions of the public, to make sure to have open public policies with the technology that we put in place for these things. To work on those goals is so vital to the sustainability questions of our future about peace, good practices, democracy. Good luck in those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Craig, you're next.
Yes, our next speaker is Craig Jones. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, especially because the survey is a short survey, it needs to be available in other languages other than English and Spanish. As you could tell from the discussion of our CBOs today. Also, there should be a version available for the vision impaired, maybe a sound response version of the survey. And you might look at creating some tiny URLs for the links to these for those who, you know, can't type in, when you can't copy and paste or cut and paste. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Any feedback, comments, additions from the working group or from the public? Otherwise, we can.
We have one more public speaker.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Bailash, go ahead, please.
Thank you once again, committee. Timothy Bylash from Central Coastal San Diego. Excuse me a second. I want to echo the previous speaker's comments and emphasize the need for open source applications. There have been many mistakes made for giving exclusive contracts to large corporations, security breaches, and I would emphasize the advisability of using open source Linux programming availability, which would encourage non-paid people as well to contribute to these issues. We tend to off-source the problems under an umbrella contract to these large corporations. As a comment, I'm a physician. In 2017, 30% of American hospitals, which use primarily proprietary software and is the most security scrutinized and monopolistic technologies, paid $24 billion in ransom demands. Now, the budget for half of all the babies born in the United States, that's approximately 2 of 4 million, is $1.3 billion a year. We paid 10 times as much for the mistakes of computer programming and technology as for delivering half the babies in America. And so I would just echo that statement. Open source software that can be made secure is a must. And please consider this in the contracts that were awarded for these services. Thank you once again.
That concludes the public comments on this item.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, we got a few minutes left. We're on to number 6. Possible guests in the future. Oh, okay. The point of entry conversation with Otay Mesa is one. Is that what you were going to bring up?
It is, yeah. I think that would be a great one to learn more about. And I'd also be interested in learning more about the cross-border trolley that's being discussed as one of the innovative concepts.
It is nice. Yes?
Updates on digital divide.
Nice. I'm sure we can do that. Yeah. Oh, December, apparently we're going to have them. I'm going to put down just housing 101. And then what Sandag, I guess I'm still a little unclear as to what Sandag's role in this housing puzzle going to be. And I'm sure you guys are sorting that out. So maybe letting us know what your expectations are of us, other than taking this information back to our communities. But I think, right? Is anybody here a housing expert? No. So it might be a good idea to just, whatever that looks like, housing 101, getting the commission down here maybe and talking about it, maybe looking at the city's plan and then the county's plan, right? And then just having just an information
Yeah, we
dump.
can come and do a kind of a housing 101 presentation, and we can talk with the city planning directors to see if maybe there's an opportunity for one of them to come and talk about how they take what Sandag's responsibility is for the regional housing needs assessment and how the methodology is put forward. We get a number from the state, come up with a methodology to assign those housing units to each of the cities by the income category for affordable, moderate, or above moderate housing, and then they implement and include that in their housing elements. And so we can ask maybe one city to come and just kind of give a breakdown for how that might work in theirs, since it would be pretty difficult to bring all of them, but we can certainly do that if that's of interest.
Oh, we can selectively pick cities, by the way, ones that are carrying their weight, and maybe that's some that aren't carrying their weight.
Well, I will say that our cities, we only have 8 that have certified housing elements right now. Most of our cities are working very hard with the state to get their housing element certified, and it's a pretty extensive process. So we can put the call for participation, volunteer out to the planning directors to see who has the availability and time to come, and maybe it could be one who actually has their housing element approved, as so many of them are actually still working on theirs.
Okay, that would be nice.
Barry?
Yes.
So, I'd like to add Youth Opportunity Pass on there. We've been meeting with our social equity transit pilot staff group, and we've been talking to the research consultants. So there will be a survey or just focus groups, research going on starting January. So then in December, we can update everyone because we'll need your participation.
Okay, it looks like it's 12 o'clock. We got, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is appropriate here, but I know the road use charge was, just kind of struck down by the board. And that's something that I don't feel like we really talked about as a social equity working group. And so I think it'd be useful to maybe learn a little bit more about, what happened there, and also to have some conversations just about funding of the plan in general and what that looks like and ways that we, as a group can, help to move forward solutions that are equitable.
I agree 150%. I think that was handled very poorly, I gotta say, but we'll get into that later. Okay.
Can I make one more?
Yes, sir.
The Sandag Active Transportation Team is updating the early action projects through a social equity lens. They came about 6 months ago or so, 9 months ago perhaps, and they want to update the new list of projects. So that's where those lines are drawn on the map, and where they're selected, that's millions of dollars determining whether you're going to have a safe way to get to school, safe way to get to the bus, lighting, safe way to walk and bike across the street. So that's a big deal. And this team is narrowing in on their recommendations to my knowledge. So I think it'd be good to learn a little bit more about what's been incorporated since our last meeting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think we have a public comment on this.
We do. We have one public commenter in person on this item, Blair B.
Hi, thank you. I like this sort of item a lot. The VTA, the Public Transit Agency for Santa Clara County, they have this sort of item that I think is helpful to really give, it allows the public to also weigh in and give a few helpful ideas in how to move forward with these sort of things. So for me, just a quick reminder that that you're thinking of housing issues coming up, how to go through a 101 class. The city of Oakland right now is fighting hard for how there can be simple tenants' rights issues to people don't have to be displaced under certain circumstances. It's a real important measure. I invite yourselves to look into. And to also remind the importance of mixed income, that I think it was an idea that's been shared. There's been study session groups all around the state of California, set up by the state of California, that I'd really, for the major cities, metropolitan areas to look into and to better understand at this time, to look into that work and its flexibility and versatility. I think would really impress you in how it is meant to develop the future of neighborhoods to have both very low income and low and moderate income in the same place. And to be able to have those conversations openly and really work on that openly is a new concept for us. Good luck how you can work on those sort of efforts. Thanks.
Thanks.
And that concludes the public comments on this item.
Okay. The next Social Equity Working Group meeting is going to be held on December the 8th, Thursday, December the 8th, 2022, excuse me, at 10 o'clock, and we're going to be here at the 401 B Street location. So it looks like we're getting back into the mode of meeting in person. Are there any questions from the working group members at all? Comments? Okay. I guess that's it. We adjourned. Somebody want to make a motion?
No, you just need to say
We're adjourned. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.